Right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm a lucky boy. Look what I just found on the floor. Lotto ticket, baby.
I'm afraid it's not lucky, mate.
It's not a winning one?
It's not a winning one. I wouldn't leave the winning one just like
Fine.
Do you know what, though? That is so on brand for you to just throw it on the floor. You've done the weirdest thing I've ever seen anyone do when entering someone's house before. And, like, luckily Leanne was there to witness it.
Because I don't remember this.
And you genuinely, I think you just malfunctioned. You walked into the porch. There was mail on the floor. So, as a courteous person, you pick it up. And I thought, oh, cool, we'll hand it to me. And you took one step into the house. And you just looked at the mail in your hand and just dropped it on the floor.
Maybe I just didn't
and
know.
then just walked past and went in the living room.
Just didn't know I had it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I thought, well, look, they're not going to see it in the porch. They'll fucking see it now.
But yeah, no, it's on brand.
It is on brand. You know what else is on brand? You spoke like, I don't remember if it made it on air. I think it did when there was a fox in the garden the other week.
Yeah, it did, because I got sidetracked because I could see a glimpse of the garden. And yeah, there was like foxes frolicking in the garden.
And how different is that? You, the one getting sidetracked.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty
It is very on brand. But the foxes are back.
They are back.
And we were just discussing your method of trying to ensure
one
that they
of
don't.
the famous ways you can put foxes off your property is to basically spread pee on your property.
And I said, are you just going around peeing around your property?
And I was like, well, no, you can't just go in your garden and get your dick out.
But it's your garden.
Yeah, but when you have neighbours with children, and like, that's indecent exposure.
What have these children got, periscopes on the fence or something? How are they seeing?
If I get it out, they're going to know.
Oh, yeah.
they hear the thud.
Scientists are like, earthquake. The Richter scale's going.
I loved it in the last week's pod. Go back and listen to it. It's a great episode.
Excellent.
Where I just keep motioning and making double entendres about my massive penis.
I don't even think.
And because of it, Leanne can't ever come on the pod because I can't ever have you press her on the realities of the situation.
I never would. I want you to know.
You're going to die with a lie.
I will live in the lie.
Yeah, as a good con man is supposed to, you die with a lie.
I'm a bro. I'm not here to throw you under the bus. I'm here to build you up. You're a peacock and I want to let you fly.
Thank you. I mean, famously, I've never been able to reciprocate that well. We came up with a con once, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We did come up with a con.
You know, and it's quite fitting given one of the people we're going to talk about on this episode talking about conning women.
A little bit. It was look. It wasn't a con. We weren't trying to con these women. It was, if
you think about it. We were trying to give over the idea that we were these amazing men who'd done something incredibly charitable.
Yeah, well, if I had actually done something incredibly charitable, it would be easier.
And it was premeditated. We didn't just make it up on the spot. No. We discussed doing it.
But if I had done amazing things, it would be easier to sell myself as an amazing guy. I haven't actually done incredible things.
Look, you are an amazing guy.
So I have to rely.
We were amazing back then. We didn't need to.
I have to rely on the lie because unfortunately there is no truth in.
So does that mean your current lady friend thinks that we did that?
No. I would never ever, as I learnt then, get you involved.
You did it.
You're not part of it. I'm sorry, bro. I had to cut you from that.
Do you know what? If I would have ever been asked about it, that we both know, I'd have folded like a house of cards.
Do you want to tell people what it was?
Yeah. So basically, we came up with this backstory that I can't remember. Were we building schools in Africa?
Something to that
somewhere
effect.
In Africa.
We were more specific. No, I think we did pick a country.
Or somewhere in Africa we were building
it was
schools.
Sub-Saharan Africa.
And we came across a young man called Mbongo.
Yes.
Which, looking back, was a really racially insensitive name.
Unbelievable. The whole story
We could have picked something French.
The whole story is littered with racial insensitivities. Yeah. I just want to clarify, we were like 16. No, we must have been about 18 because I think we were drinking.
We were clubbing at that point.
But we weren't. We were fresh.
Yeah. We hadn't discovered podcasting then.
We hadn't discovered anything. I'd barely started masturbating.
That's not true. Your mum says a very different story.
Weird
I don't know why she
you'd have with my mum, yeah.
Apparently you were notoriously loud.
Still am.
Goodness gracious.
Still am.
At the top of your voice.
God damn, I like to yell as I'm sort of on the midway point.
Mum, it happened again.
Anywho.
What were we talking about?
Little Mbongo.
Okay, yeah. And so we're out there, we're digging wells, building schools. You know, we're transforming sub-Saharan
Doing what
Africa.
good
Christian
white men do on gap years.
and that we reunited him with his long-lost mother. They'd been separated by a civil war.
Yeah, and we'd met him at one point in the trip, and then later in the trip, we met another woman, and the stories matched up, so we kind of dug a little bit, and we were like, oh my God, this... And it was just an incredible moment when we reunited them, and like, genuinely, it's one of those moments that will stay with you forever. Except you could not tell the story without laughing.
And we got quite far into it, if I remember correctly.
Eventually.
And it was working.
Eventually.
And then just, I think because we'd been drinking, I just broke.
I mean, it didn't help. The drink didn't help.
No.
A lot of people
But
find...
I think it'd have been worse if we'd have done it sober.
Yeah, that's brandy. Yeah. That's Russell Brand-esque.
Yeah.
But drunk, and you think, I'm just going to tell this story about this sweet moment and see... It's Joey's, trekking story.
Oh, the backpacking story.
It's the backpacking story, right?
I don't remember what it is, but I remember that there was a backpacking story.
Really, what's the difference? I realise using Joey as an example on how to treat women is maybe not the golden point.
Yeah, but he's not I mean, look, Friends is littered with all sorts of...
things that were of their time.
100%.
Is the most...
But I don't think there was
diplomatic.
anything, in my opinion, explicitly offensive about any of the characters.
Ross was a bit of a walking red flag.
Okay, yeah, maybe Ross dating very, very young women.
Yeah, dating a student.
And the telling her he got divorced and not getting divorced.
He was very possessive and jealous.
All right, no, fair enough. Ross, perhaps.
And,
yeah.
So, apart from Ross.
Apart from Ross, they're all right.
They're okay. Hey, they're all right.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, Chandler was a bad example of men not knowing how to talk about their feelings.
Famously couldn't cry up until a point.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not perfect.
No.
None of them are perfect.
But yeah, I don't think it was an overtly offensive show.
No, and it's one of those things where you think... Because I know I want to I changed the framing slightly on this because you hear a lot, would it get made today? It would. I think it still would. I think a lot of the jokes would still get written and pass, and make it onto the screen. But I think the point is today it wouldn't be written that way because our perspectives are different. So
no, and I mean sitcoms just don't really get made now, do they?
Not good ones.
No. I don't remember the last time I watched a sitcom.
No, there's quite a lot floating around. Channel 4 still pump out quite a lot.
I know
over
Rob
here.
McElhenney's
BBC pump quite a lot. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but
he's also funded, his wife does one now, I think.
Yeah, and he does this mythical quest thing. I'll tell you what, Abbott Elementary is one that's on my list to watch because people talk about that as being a good... It's sort of like Office-y in the sense that it's like a faux documentary, but it's set in a primary school or elementary school. That gets really highly talked about. There's been a lot of those.
There was one, was it Trolleyed, which was, and I thought I'd like it because it was about working in a supermarket, and it was just a pile of shit.
Garbage. Yeah, no, but
and that was like a faux documentary sort of thing.
Sitcoms are hard to write because I think you quite easily fall into one or two things. Your characters tend to fall into tropish roles.
Was New Girl a sitcom?
Yeah.
I liked New Girl.
Yeah.
New Girl was fantastic.
Your characters either fall into tropish roles, and then what happens is the jokes tend to be very formulaic and repetitive, and it's The Big Bang Theory. I actually enjoyed a lot of the earlier series of Big Bang Theory, but I'm not blind to the fact that the jokes were... It was the same joke told differently every single week.
I mean, my mum and dad used to watch it so often, I never ended up finishing watching it, to be honest with you.
There's a large part. I think I watched the last episode just to watch the last episode to see how they ended it, but there's so much in the run up to that last episode that I don't.
Or?
I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do, but it's one of those. I don't know. I can't really say for sure because I didn't watch the 4 or 5 seasons that came before the ending.
Did you not?
No. It just got so. And this is the thing with Friends a little bit. Friends, How I Met Your Mother, and Friends, I suppose, is that you want these characters to grow, but ultimately, if they're going to become completely different characters, that changes the dynamic of your show.
Yeah.
So either you've got to be prepared to move with that dynamic change and shift your humour and your jokes around it so that you're still getting the same enjoyment and effectiveness.
And feeling from it, yeah.
Or, and this is what a lot of sitcoms do, I find, not sitcoms, just comedies in general, is they find a character's moved too much and they no longer fit the peg that they want them to fit, the hole that they want them to peg into. And so they just drag them back. They just undo all of that work, and then suddenly next season they're exactly as they were. You know, you get your Lothario Playboy, it's a very common one.
Yeah, yeah.
Who goes through their own emotional journey, settles down. Joey famously went through it when he started to try and date Rachel, and then obviously looked towards the end, he was looking at like what everyone had with Monica and Chandler and Phoebe and Mike, and he was a bit...
Sort of just accepted that he was going to spend the rest of his life living in the spare
but
room.
he did ultimately still fit into the same trope he fell into in the first one. But, you know, I think Barney in How I Met Your Mother, I think he changed so much, which was a good thing for his character.
Yeah, yeah. And you got more out of Neil Patrick Harris.
But it meant they couldn't do the same jokes, but they were still trying to do the same jokes. And it wasn't landing. Because the characters, none of the characters are the same anymore.
And by the end, the story was just shit, wasn't
it?
Like they just... And spending an entire series in the build-up to a wedding, and it was dreadful.
And that storyline, for me, it has its merits. It is Joey and Rachel. It's trying to take a playboy and a character who's already established with another character and saying, these two are now going to be a couple. And it's like... He shouldn't be in a long-term relationship, and she should be with her. You know,
spoiler alert that they end up back together anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just,
I don't know. Sitcoms are. I think the hardest thing to write is a sketch show. I've always said that comedy.
I'd love to be involved in sketch comedy, though. I think it'd be fantastic.
I think I would love to do that. I would love to do that with you, but I think we would have to go into it with for me, with the setup of we are going to be harsh on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't just go, that's a good idea.
I'd like to be harsh in general.
Unless, you know, we can't just go, that's a good idea, that's a funny idea. It has to be, the whole sketch has to really make us laugh.
Yeah.
Before we put it
I'm
out
really
there.
into, I don't know how familiar with him you are. Do you know who Shane Gillis is?
Yeah. Really like Shane Gillis.
He's got a really good, catalogue of sketches now. Because famously, he was going to go be originally like a member of Saturday Night Live. And then some clips of him doing Asian accents came out, and he got cancelled and got removed from the show before he even got on air. But he's actually recently, because he's got so big, he's done a host appearance on Saturday Night Live now. But he's done loads of sketches. There's one that's called Uncle's Daycare. There's one, The Blind Man at the Wedding.
His the beer ad.
Yeah, the beer ad. He's recently on Saturday Night Live done Forrest Gump.
So I think Saturday Night Live is so much more missed than hit, in my opinion. I hope that never stops us hosting, but
I think the chances are low, bro.
Do you know what one of my favourite sketches, and I think they did them a couple of times, is the Nate Bargatze sketch where he plays Washington.
George, what? Oh my God!
And he's talking about the nation they're going to build.
And the bit that gets me in every single one is the black guy being
Keenan Thompson,
slavery, right? And he's like, one day, son.
Free for amen. When you say amen, you mean amen.
And then he changes the subjects every time.
We're also going to have measurements. Yeah.
And Nate Bargatze
sells it. He sells it. Yeah. He's fantastic in it.
And his stand-up I'm not particularly into, but him doing sketches.
Him as George Washington is
just works.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So no, sketches, it's something more. And Saturday Night Live, I've never had any interest in, but I've been starting to it's being fed to me a little bit.
It's why as well, I think I've mentioned it, I may have mentioned it before on the podcast, but I'm always a big fan of the fact that British sitcoms tend to have 6 episodes.
Yeah, and it's a limited run.
And they tend to run for 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And I'm such a big fan of that, because what that means is you look back and pretty much every episode is a fucking hit. Yeah, there are no fillers. There are none where you're just tuning in and going, eh. They are all, In-Betweeners is probably the one from our generation. Every episode is a fucking hit in that.
Yeah, and there's a moment from it that's legendary.
100%.
Even the films, to be honest with you, they're really good.
I didn't like the second one.
I don't mind either of them.
There's moments.
Like the water park in number 2 just...
See, for me, it's in number 2. It's the hits Will and the guitar.
Yes,
that's the moment.
Your face.
The first time.
And the thing
Closing his eyes.
For some reason, I just picture you, and it's only
Ash
because
said the
you're
same
the
thing, I
only
think.
guitar player I know.
And I am the kind of bloke that would bust out the old.
The thing is, I
Mad
take the piss
falsetto.
out of it. I'm not against it. Like, I'm up for a sing-song.
Yeah, I am. No, but when you think back at something like 40 Towers, which is often regarded as one of the best. No, I know, and it's not necessarily for our listeners either. But when you look back, it's often regarded as one of the best British sitcoms.
Yeah.
There's only ever like 6 episodes.
Well, and I think part of the reason The Office, the UK version's held in such high esteem,
2 seasons and the specials.
and it was done.
Literally 12 episodes, a few specials. That's it.
Yeah. Whereas the American version, I don't even know how many series there are.
10.
Yeah. So and they're 24 episode seasons. Aren't
And Michael Scott, what's his name? The actor who plays
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell left midway through the 7th season. So they did 8, 9, and 10 plus a half without.
Yeah, because they had wasn't not Catherine Ryan.
Catherine Tate. Yeah,
Catherine
she
Tate
joined
was
it.
in it. James Spade.
Who's the one who won for Misery as well? The
Will Ferrell was in it.
Kathy Bates turns up in it as well.
Yes. And I like Kathy Bates, to be fair.
Yeah. Like it just got ridiculous.
Yeah, I think part of that is though there's not as much money in the UK for these things as well.
While we're just critiquing sitcoms and we're talking about the US Office, the
none
US,
of this was on the list.
The US Office had the biggest misstep I've ever seen in any show ever.
What's that?
Because you get a lot of shows that kill off popular characters. Sometimes it's behind, but sometimes the writers just get a thing. It's not a behind the scenes reason. They just go, "Oh, that'll be really no one will see it coming." It's like, what are you doing, you morons? You've just stopped anyone watching it. The Office did a storyline in the later series after Carell had left.
I've never
must
seen
have been
series.
season 9 or 10. It was like right late on, where Jim and Pam are going for a real rough patch, and Jim's become a bit of a dick, and he's kind of treating Pam like shit. And she's having a moment where she's crying because she's being treated like shit, which is like, dude, you just spent like this is the love story. I know, I know you've got a problem with couples, but fucking hell, come on, man. The boom operator from the documentary film crew steps in, and then he is a character. It's this storyline with this like love triangle between them, where it's like, I mean, he's never going to win. It's always going to be Jim Pam. It's like, you've broken the fourth. Yeah, you've broken down the illusion that. Yes, it's just ridiculous. It was the biggest misstep I've ever seen. I was like, if I was in that room, you know, you have all opinions on jokes and storylines. That would have been the one where I'd be like, I will fucking die on this hill.
Yeah.
Do not get the people behind the camera in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Absolute mistake.
Fair enough. I can see the passion
Rant
in your eyes.
so dumb. So dumb.
Speaking of things we can rant about, to swerve massively.
You can't do that while I'm taking a drink of water. Come on, man.
It's not water, that's iced tea.
Well, other brands are available.
A cool sip of iced tea.
I would love to have some proper, like, Southern American iced tea. Can I get you some iced tea, boys?
Yeah.
I would love to. Oh.
Yeah.
Or some lemonade. Some nice homemade lemonade.
On the porch.
On a porch.
On a swing. On a rope swing. What is it they're called? I fucked it. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but I know exactly what you mean.
But anyway, moving swiftly on. Russell Brand's been charged with sexual assault.
Yes. It's actually a page on the Met Police's website.
Is it actually?
I've got it up. Do you want me to read out what he's actually been charged with?
No, go for it, because it's good. It's important that we're accurate, because he's quite legal. Do you know what I mean? There's a chance he watches this.
So this is on the Metro Police. This was released on the 4th of April, just before 2 o'clock. The Crown Prosecution Service has authorised the Metropolitan Police Service to charge a man following an investigation by detectives. The Met has issued a charge and requisition to Russell Brand, 49, then they've put his birthday, of Oxfordshire, in connection with the following offences. 1 count of rape, 1 count of indecent assault, 1 count of oral rape, and 2 counts of sexual assault. Detectives began investigating in September 2023 after receiving a number of allegations which followed reporting by Channel 4's Dispatches and the Sunday Times. So those documentaries have directly led
to this,
which is...
And also, for the police to charge him, they must think they have
there's
enough
evidence,
to
yeah. So there's
go
a huge,
after him.
Huge kudos to the team
dispatches.
that worked on those cases.
And the victims that came forward.
Yeah. So here it is. It's alleged that in 1999, a woman was raped in the Bournemouth area. In 2001, a woman was indecently assaulted in the Westminster area of London. 2004, a woman was orally raped and sexually assaulted in the Westminster area of London. And between 2004 and 2005...
It's not the first time that's happened, is it?
A woman was sexually assaulted in the Westminster area of London. I mean...
Sorry, I don't mean to make light of it. It's just...
he'll appear in Westminster Magistrates Court Friday the 2nd of May. Friday the 2nd of May.
Do you want to hear... Because he did like a short statement on the socials. Do you want to hear that?
100%. Why would I not?
Have you heard it?
No.
Okay, you'll need to... I don't know. Let me just double check I'm connected to the Bluetooth. Yeah, I am. Cool. Are we turned up?
Yeah, it's turned up. I'm just going to take my jacket off because I feel like this is getting spicy.
Firstly, thank you for these incredible and overwhelming messages of support.
Pause it.
We're very fortunate.
Who the fuck?
I can't pause it. I can only mute it.
Okay, we'll come back to it then.
Let me restart.
Sorry.
For these incredible and overwhelming messages of support.
Who?
We're very fortunate in a way to live in a time where there's so little trust in the British government. We're very fortunate, I suppose, that this is happening at a time where we know that the law has become a kind of weapon to be used against people, institutions, and sometimes entire nations that will not accept and tolerate levels of corruption that are unprecedented. I'm speaking particularly to those of you that are watching this in the UK. How do you feel about your legal system right now? How do you feel about some of the high-profile cases that are not being pursued and prosecuted? How do you feel that the Southport murders were handled? How do you feel about the government of Keir Starmer? Now, that's just sort of general context. I've always told you guys that when I was young and single, before I had my wife and family, who were just out of shot over there, my beautiful children, I was a fool, man. I was a fool before I lived in the light of the Lord. I was a drug addict, a sex addict, and an imbecile. But what I never was a rapist. I've never engaged in non-consensual activity. I pray that you can see that by looking in my eyes. I want to thank all of you for your continuing support. I want to let you know that our show will be on Rumble on Monday. Thanks for your support there. And of course, I'm now going to have the opportunity to defend these charges in court, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. In the meantime, you lot, stay free. And we will be continuing to discuss this matter.
Can I say a few things immediately in response to that?
No, I was going to say, our best ever social media clip is of you ranting about Russell Brand.
So you're ready for me to go?
The floor is yours, my man.
Okay, first of all, who's supporting him? Who's sent him messages of support? Second of all, round of applause for getting the Southport murders in there. That is just some true Nigel Farage shit. That is like a masterclass.
Yeah.
And also... for getting his kids and the Lord all in there, absolutely top notch. The idea that we've politicised rape. That as if, do you know what? Back in the good old days, you could get away with sexual assault, but now, thanks to these fucking culture wars, you can't get away with nothing. No. Unbelievable.
You can't indecently assault a woman anymore.
He's talking about, oh, do you know what? Aren't you upset that bigger things aren't going through? First of all, what are you talking about? You talked about the Southport murders. Yeah. I think you'll find that has gone through, that has been processed. So what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Name these other big cases that aren't being pushed through. And second of all, as if he's going, isn't it ridiculous that they're trying to do me like they're trying to get a rapist? How silly are the police? How dare they go after a fucking rapist?
I've got children. They're just off camera.
Yeah. And I love God, man. Do you think anyone who loves God has ever raped anyone?
Rippers. Where's Rippers? We need it.
Did God die?
No, we live in the light of the Lord, Jay.
That's the death of his old self, I think. No, but is it... Come on, man. Be serious. Be serious.
When it came out that he got charged, my sister sent me that clip of him discussing it. And the first thing I said to her was he hit everything in like a minute and a half. From conspiracy, builds that up. I'm a dad, let's get sympathy. I've got a family, I've got wife and children. You can't, you don't believe that I would do that, surely.
Yeah.
And then, again, builds up the conspiracy with the Southport murder stuff. And then just hit, and then brings up religion and just nails every possible talking point.
He's almost because there's obviously a lot of talk, there's always a lot of talk when we talk about immigration, about these Asian grooming gangs and that they're all rapists or whatever. It's almost as if he's going, and it's a stretch, but go with me. It's almost as if he's saying, come on, guys, we don't really want to go after white rapists. Those aren't the ones that are important.
Well, that is more or less the argument from that side of things, isn't it? Is that, no, this isn't a white problem.
And as I was about to say, as if anyone who is a part of the community of God has ever been found guilty of heinous sexual crimes.
Yeah. And then it was the bit where he was like,
could you imagine?
Just by looking at my eyes, you can see I didn't do this.
I felt under threat as soon as I made eye contact. No, but also, like, him talking about consensual sex. When I think back of Russell Brand and what I sort of knew of him, having watched him on TV and stuff at that time, the 2000s, I do believe that at that time, if you'd have asked, I do believe that he probably wouldn't have knowingly, and this is where it gets a bit testy.
No, I know
but
what
not
you're trying
knowingly
to
engaged
say.
in non-consensual, but I believe he would have engaged in coercive behaviour and forceful behaviour that would have made a girl very scared to say no.
Yeah. And the thing is, what people like him are really good at is he's a charismatic.
But then I think he probably did know what he was doing, so it throws it out the window.
Well-spoken, and I bet he loved bombs, and I think he's
100%.
probably incredibly intense, and he whips you up in the whirlwind that is Russell Brand, and look at my hair.
Especially at that time, the
dressed.
celebrity status, so look, come on, let's get backstage at Big
And
Brother.
he was a star, so I think he whipped, and from the sounds of things, a lot of very young and vulnerable women up, and just took advantage of them.
Well, in the Dispatches episode, there was a whole story about
And
the
I feel
cabbie,
for his wife as well, to be honest with you.
the cabbie who rang, who was trying to plea with this 15-year-old girl, please
Not to
don't
go.
go round there. He's like, I can't do anything really, but I can make my case, because if that was my daughter, I'd want someone to make the case. But 15 years old, and he's getting her driven,
Round
paying for.
Yeah.
But why do you feel sorry for his wife?
Well, just that she's got children, and I mean, look, we don't know how much she does or doesn't know about him and whether he's done anything or not.
Let me ask you this.
But she's put in a very difficult position.
If found guilty, do you think she'll stand by him?
I don't know. I don't know enough about her. I don't really know who she is.
No.
Or if she's staying with him currently, it's hard to think she wouldn't.
Is she staying with the grift?
Well, and again, like, we don't know what he said to her, and it's not impossible to believe that he's manipulated and coerced her, and, like, let's face it, she has had children with him, so she's in a vulnerable position.
That's a very good point. We can't prove anything. We can speculate and consider, but the idea that he's being charged with being manipulative and coercive in the dispatches box, don't necessarily mean by the police, but but there's this coercive manipulative with people that he's meeting for short periods. Imagine what he's doing with someone on a longer term basis. An abuser is an abuser, a manipulator is a manipulator.
And men that do this sort of thing know what they're doing. They know how to do it.
100%.
And it's been well practiced.
It's calculated.
If you pick the right target, it's incredibly easy. And I don't say that to mean women are easy targets, but there are vulnerable women out there.
No, but it's so often where people in these relationships, they don't know what's been happening until they're out of it. And only once you're out of it can you look back and go, fucking hell,
That
I was
bad.
really,
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to think it's that. I don't want his wife to be a coerced and abused woman.
Oh, yeah. Or a knowing
I don't know which
accomplice
one's
of
worse, that or her being completely okay with
complicit in
what he
with
might
a rapist.
have done. Yeah. And then, there's two innocent children, multiple innocent children involved. I think he's had 3, maybe.
Surely God will protect them now that Russell's changed sides.
Yeah. But it is interesting that the general narrative from the internet is agreeing with him in terms of this is just, he's always been a conspiracist, so they're just coming for him.
In prison, do you think he'll visit the prison chapel?
I mean, yeah, of course
Do
he
you think
will.
he'll keep it up?
Yeah, of course he will. The problem is, I was about to say you can't ever drop it, but I guess you can.
What, the soap?
Well, no, but the religion side of things, can you? Like, once you've gone, I've had my come to Jesus moment, you can't then in a few years.
Yeah, you can.
I guess you can in this current world we live in.
And the easiest way is to just let it fade out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just sort of don't
Just
say anything.
Slowly phase it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the occasional mention of God
Yeah.
until eventually you stop mentioning him at all.
Like if you've got an accent and you stop doing the accent,
And
you
also,
slowly.
I think part of his personality is he's one of these people that he fixates on things. Like he was a massive spiritualist before becoming fully religious, and do you know what I mean? So I think he just moves from thing to thing to what suits him.
This move though was very much, we said it at the time, and you can go back and listen to that episode, but we said it at the time. It's such a common pipeline from there's some serious accusations on the horizon.
Suddenly I'm religious.
Suddenly I'm a deeply
I'm a
religious man who's very
and anti-establishment.
yeah,
Yeah.
who's anti-mainstream media, anti-woke, and I'm a big believer in
And
God
full
and
into
Jesus. I'm a
free
huge
speech,
Christian.
and they help whip up that idea that they're coming for you sort of mentality. So
Yeah. When really what you're trying to say is, you know, it's just like, I should be free to rape a woman. Like, I don't think you should, Russell. Listen, call me crazy.
I may be a traditionalist here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Shoot
mean?
me down if you must.
Yeah. If being woke is wrong, I don't want to be right. Do you know what I mean?
If that's what it is,
Yeah.
then I'm guilty.
I'll be the outlier if I have to.
But, you know, I don't think that should be right.
No.
And I also don't think that it's an either-or situation as well when it comes to charging criminals.
No.
If particularly criminals that leave such trauma in the victims.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he's prosecuted, because the events were quite a while ago. It will be difficult to prove. But
It's technically a historic case, for sure.
But
look,
it's
you
interesting. I've even heard that being used as a defence against him. That,
why now kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and sort of just like, well, it was so long ago. How, like, 'cause in
mate,
America, they've got statute of limitations.
Tell
and
you
stuff.
now, if I was going to come after you, it would be when you was at the height of your powers and you had all the money. Not, you know, if I'm just coming
Not
after
when
you
you're
for
still
that.
the drugged up loser.
Yeah, not when you're sitting out in some ranch
That-
and your
that's-
hippie
but I
pants
would
telling us
just
all how
say
much you love
that's not
God and
what
hate mainstream media.
These women have done that for.
No, but I'm saying if that,
Yeah.
you know, as a kind of comeback to that argument,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I wouldn't wait till now when you're slepping around with Jordan Peterson telling us all how much the BBC are wank and you fucking love
Tommy
God.
Robinson's amazing.
Like, it would 100% be back in the days when you had enough money to do a fucking ounce of heroin every other week or whatever he was
Yeah.
putting in his body.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, that's not. And like you said, look, rape cases and sexual assault cases are difficult.
Yeah.
Very few get reported. Of the ones that get reported, very few make it to court. And even of the ones that make it to court, very few end in a guilty prosecution.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, the Crown Prosecution Service, the Met Police must have submitted enough evidence to the CPS
To
that the
bring a case
CPS would
forward.
have said, yes, go ahead, we'll book it into a court, charge him.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And also, the other thing is that he always lived in England. He doesn't anymore. As soon as this all came out, apparently, he suddenly moved out to America.
Well, apparently he's registered in Oxfordshire.
Well, I heard he was living in America.
But that's where the grift is. That's where the money is.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in that video, it did look quite sunny. I know we've had a bit of a sunny spell, but
That looked like a tropical beach he was sat on, didn't it?
it looked ranchy at the very best. Yeah, it
Yeah.
looked.
To me, that looked like he had white sands behind him. And
There
the
was sand.
ocean.
I saw sand. I saw,
But that could be anywhere, couldn't it?
except the UK, because
Oh yeah, we don't really have tropical sandy beaches.
we have stones, we have pebbles.
Yeah, I love Brighton, by the way. Like, I love going to Brighton, but the stones is shit. Just
Just to be clear, you mean you're not attacking the band?
no,
you
the
just-
Rolling
you
Stones
mean
I'm a fan of.
Stones
but
on the beach.
The Stones on the beach is shit.
Well, like the donuts of Brighton Pier are the best donuts in the world. I will stand on that hill. That I will.
No, I think a good fresh Krispy Kreme beats.
Nah, Brighton Pier donuts,
Fair
the
enough.
ones. I've said before, if I suddenly got super rich, came into a shit ton of money,
You're
like
having
won the
one of
lottery,
those machines.
I'm having one of those donut machines.
I feel like it's more within reach than a
Other
lottery
ambitions.
win. Do you know what I mean? No, but just like I don't think you need to win the lottery to make that happen.
They're quite expensive though, the proper
Yeah,
ones.
but they're not lottery win expensive. They're like you could save up or finance. Do you know what I mean?
Imagine that. Well, in this current economy,
You
while
finance
we're
the
trying to
donut
get a
machine.
place together and I'm set.
Oh.
No. I'm hypothetically saying down the line.
I thought that was you, like just we're trying to and casually.
We're trying to save up for a place together, and it's like, do you know what? I honestly, me and you, even me and you, and saying, do you know what? I honestly thought between us we'd have saved up more by now, and then it comes out that I've got a secret fund because I'm actually trying to buy a donut machine.
Yeah. Do you know what though? Again, I feel like I could imagine
it happening.
Like the next time I see you and your partner, it turns out you two have had a row because she found out there's a donut machine fund.
I think she'd understand.
You've been funneling funds away.
I think she'd understand. Anyone who knows me, I think, knows.
I think I don't think she'd be shocked. I don't think she'd be pleased. Do you know what I mean? I think they're two different things.
The two aren't exclusively mutual.
But yeah. I like the fact you have a missus so that we can awkwardly talk about her on the podcast.
Yeah, keep doing it. Oh, it's too late.
I didn't say her name though.
No, you didn't.
I've never named her on the pod. It was you. I mean, if Alex had come on, he'd have done it for
100%.
You know, it wouldn't shock me if he knew where she lived.
He'd have also go halves in on my donut machine.
Yeah, but he'd want certain privileges.
You're right, and I can't afford that to anyone.
No.
I take priority with my donut machine.
Yeah.
But I will be...
That's not something you want to share.
I'll be generous.
Yeah.
Listen, you come round... Like, I win the lottery.
Yeah.
I'd have a bar in the house where, like, pool table, like, everyone can just come round and watch, like, the sport events. You know what I mean? Like Champions League matches, FA Cup games, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's beer on tap. There's proper drinks behind the bar. And I'm telling you now, okay, you're all getting some donuts there, freshly made as well, whenever you come round.
That sounds good. Like, look, I'm not going to knock it. Like, if you want to have a fresh donut machine in your house for us, I'm on board.
No, I just want to clarify the donut machine.
Can you
is
make
not
some jam ones though?
For you, it's just there, and I reckon I could.
No, look, I'm not claiming ownership of your donut machine.
But I reckon I could make some jam ones.
Yeah.
How hard can it be?
I don't know.
You just sort of like do a ball, chuck it in rather than through the ring,
throw some jam
and
in
then
there.
Poke some jam in.
I mean, look, that sounded technical enough to me.
I know. I've seen the Bake Off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that concludes the Russell Brand section of the podcast.
Fair.
Is there anything you'd like to discuss?
Maybe.
Okay.
I didn't expect this to be thrown over to me.
Did you not?
What's your favourite meat?
Gammon.
No, I don't know. Gammon is do you know what? It's an underrated meat, a gammon.
Whenever I go to a carvery, I have nothing else.
A good joint of gammon is just... We had a joint of gammon the other, like a few weeks back, and then we had another one a couple of days ago. But the second one was nice, but the first one was just...
Yeah. If you get it right, it's just phenomenal.
It was a good cut of meat.
What about you? What's your favourite meat? Other than my knob, obviously.
It's chicken because it's so versatile.
Okay.
I like a wing. I like a nugget. I like just a
dipper,
a breast, a thigh.
Goujon,
I like everything.
I mean,
I like
chicken
breaded.
Kiev is up there. It's go
breaded, battered, grilled. You know, everything. It's just
grilled chicken. I'm not as keen on.
It's all good.
I like it to be smothered in
chicken.
Something.
Is the most versatile. Do you know what also is one of those things that I think more adults should get into eating? Turkey dinosaurs.
I'm not as big a fan now. I'm not a fan of like frozen turkey now. Like the taste of it, it's just a bit weird.
Is it to you?
To
really?
Me it is, yeah. Like I tried turkey drummers a couple of years ago for the first time in like ages, and I just didn't like it.
Fair
enough.
And
I used to love them when I was a kid.
Yeah, I haven't had them since I was a kid, if I'm honest. I've had turkey dinosaurs as an adult, but
then I loved turkey Twizzlers when I was younger as well.
Fucking Jamie Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm actually a fan of Jamie Oliver, but I hold that against him.
How could you not?
Yeah. Like, you used to be able to go into your school. Like, I remember early days of secondary school, you could get hold of some turkey Twizzlers, and it was amazing.
Chips. Basically all the yellow foods.
Yeah.
All the beige foods. Just
normally
the good
foods.
Normally
there was a burger available.
Always a burger.
Yeah. It's gone.
All gone.
It's all gone.
Now I'm an adult and I can actually still eat those things.
Right. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, and we've sort of talked about it before on the pod to do with Star Wars, is John Boyega.
Sure.
Previously, he'd been like really critical of Disney in general, and that they'd done a bait and switch and sort of hyped him up that he was going to be a much bigger character than he was.
I think in my opinion, they definitely used him as a first black Jedi. Now we're just kidding, man. We're just going to do the woman.
And he said
You're not going to get both.
Like, we just had Black Panther, and he said, in my opinion, they tried to
cash in on
that
it. Yeah,
wave but he's apparently recently, instead of criticising Disney, he's gone after the fans. And he was quoted as saying, because he was on, they've done like a documentary recently, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about making some of the Star Wars films. And he was quite critical on that, of the fans, because apparently he sort of had conversations with Disney since, and he's vented a lot of his frustrations, and he thinks they've learnt some of the lessons since.
They haven't.
He's being accused of basically like selling out, essentially. But he said about the fans, Star Wars is so white that a black person existing in it is a big deal, and toxic fans are okay with us playing the friends, but we can't touch their heroes.
I agree. I've always felt, as someone who is a member of the Star Wars fandom and the Star Wars fans community to an extent, I've always felt it's a very toxic place in general. It's very, like everything nowadays, it's polarized. You can't...
And I imagine people are quite dogmatic about stuff as well.
Yeah, you can't just be like, oh, I like this film, I wasn't a massive fan. You can't be neutral on anything.
You've either got to love everything or hate everything.
So it's like, for me, I've always said there's moments in the sequels, but overall, I'm not a massive fan of them.
No. I actually think he's got a point about the fan base being toxic and there being
but
at least
when you
a
look
portion
at,
that's racist.
I think something that backs him up is the Acolyte.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I figured that's where you were going.
Yeah, because like that show, because I started watching it, and there's only one scene in the entire series that I thought wasn't up to the same level as everything else, and it was literally, I think, the first scene where one of the main protagonists has a fight with a Master Jedi, and I just thought the fight wasn't particularly well done. Everything else about
was it in the kind of barn? Starts upstairs,
right at the start of the show, and I just thought it was a bit naff, and I didn't quite buy it. But everything else in the show, I thought was just top notch and well done. And I think I got to like the third or fourth episode, and I texted you and was like, "What were people annoyed about again?" Because I remember you bringing it up on the podcast, mentioning that it wasn't getting a second season, and I'm watching it going, this is really fucking good. Like, what
it's one of the best things Star Wars have put out in recent years.
It's one of the first thing, the last thing I enjoyed, and I'd say I probably actually enjoyed this more. I really liked Kenobi, but I think Acolyte was probably better, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the characters were compelling.
Yeah.
The villain was compelling.
He was brilliant.
The action sequences were absolutely fantastic.
Oh, some of the lightsaber duels.
And I thought the storyline and the acting from the dude from Squid Games, I can't think of his name, but who played Soul, Master Soul.
Oh, was he the winner in the Squid Game? Oh,
and I think he...
I did not spot
I should
that.
Google that before I make some like massive racist error.
No, I think you're right.
But I'm 90% sure. I'm not going to look it up.
I'm pretty sure you're right. Now you've said it, I'm like, yeah.
But he plays this because it's like, you know, the problem with the Jedi and their own downfall is their arrogance and their high and mighty.
Yeah, that they're superior
they
to
think
everyone.
They have this morally superior.
Yeah.
And actually he operates in this, and he plays with his guilt. But he's like, no, I am a good man. But he's like, deep down, there's kind of, he does have that. It's very good. It's very compelling, and the action sequences are amazing.
All Jedi have you know, everyone has a light and dark.
The way it's filmed with the lightsabers lighting the scenes in the dark stuff, so you get like these clashes of yellows and purples and greens and blues
and orange and
red. It looks fantastic. So it's visually good. Yeah. The storyline is good. The character's compelling. The action is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And there wasn't ever really what felt like a filler episode. There was shit going down in every single episode.
And I think the problem was that these group of people, these small-ish, and I'm not going to try and downplay it, but very vocal group of people. I was
going to say incredibly vocal.
Who anti-woke. So they see a show where the two main characters...
Two females.
The main character is a woman who's black. Her, one of the other main characters is a black woman.
Yeah.
Her, you know, who she's linked to is an Asian man.
Yeah.
The apprentices of him are a black man and a woman, obviously an alien, playing an alien, but they're the kind of central characters. There's only really one white dude, because the villain or at least our intro to the villain, is an Asian man.
Yeah.
The only white dude is one of the older Jedi who's kind of cut himself off from society to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So I think they look at that and rather than just enjoy the story, they're like, there's no white people, therefore Disney are trying to be overly woke. They're trying to ram woke down our throats. Now, I'm not going to lie, with what I know from Disney and what you've spoken there about their approach with the John Boyega thing, I think they probably did. I think there probably was meetings where they went, do you know what?
Yeah,
I think they got the script and they went, I think she should be black. I think he should be Asian, whatever. But I think we should have, we should not have too many white people, and we make it empowering. And then
because I'll be honest with you, and this sounds like a wanky thing. I just didn't notice. Do you know, I was watching it, and at no point was I like, oh, there's no white people.
The only reason I did notice is because that's what a lot of the voice was about. That's what a lot of the talk was about.
Yeah,
this
and
wokeness.
I think because I watched it like 2 years on, I just didn't have any of that. So I just went in, and I'd forgotten about our conversation. I was like, wait, didn't Jake say people were really pissed off with this? I was like, what were they up? And that's when I texted you, and you were like, yeah, it's because there's no white men in it. I
genuinely think that's what it boils down to, because...
And those same people that would be annoyed about that would be annoyed at John Boyega for pointing out that there isn't enough black people in Disney and in Star Wars in particular. George Lucas has argued that in his opinion most of the characters aren't human. They're aliens and they're of all different colours and creeds. So in his opinion...
Yeah, it's easy for him to say, well...
Like, he disagrees that it's a racist enterprise or that they're not diverse enough, because he's like, there's more diversity in...
But also, with all due respect... The first batch of 3
I mean, when did they come out?
Were made between sort of 1976 and 1980.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a heavily white industry.
Yeah.
The prequels, which did feature Sam Jackson, but not more representation beyond that.
No.
Again, it's a very white dominated thing.
Yeah.
But the difference with the prequels is a lot of the characters that were in the first series in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s had to also feature in the prequel. So they were already set as
white people.
They were already white. Ben Kenobi is already white.
He couldn't suddenly be a black man.
Luke Skywalker's white, so his dad's white, his mum's white. Dooku arguably could have been anything.
Yeah.
And obviously Mace Windu, they did cast a black guy in the role, but Sidious is already white. Like, you can't change that. So I do think that I'm slowly losing my train of thought, but I'll get it back. I think so. In the new one, I think they did overhype the black guy thing 100%, and they, putting him on the poster with the lightsaber is incredibly misleading when he literally picks it up for like one scene.
Yeah.
But I really like the Acolyte.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant.
And the numbers were good. So when they said, it's because the numbers, it was one of the most watched shows of that year.
Yeah.
On Disney Plus.
I can believe it. It's really good.
So I'm really upset that they're not getting a second series. And what really upsets me is that Disney have caved to this
small
very vocal group of racists. Like, I'm not going to call it anything else. They are...
But look, that's the story.
They'll call themselves anti-woke.
Everywhere at the moment, isn't it? Like, whether it's politics and...
Yeah.
Like, people
capitulating to the far right. Well, far right. I'm mute. They
but
might
look,
not necessarily...
I would imagine the people that had an issue with the fact there wasn't enough white people in Acolyte are very likely the same sort of people that vote for Donald Trump.
Well, they think it's the deletion of the white man. It's the whole thing of
people are terrified that multiculturalism somehow means white people vanish.
And the thing is,
do you know what I think it is? Partly, and I could be completely wrong, whether it's because we did such horrific things as a race throughout the years that we're like, well, what if they do it to us? Do you know, I wonder whether
100%,
whether that plays into it, like, because we did it to them, they're automatically going to do it to us.
I think that's evident in a lot of parts of life where it's like, well, what if they do this? And it's like, the only reason that's on your mind is because we did it.
Yeah.
You only got what you got because you did that. So 100% you're seeing that. But I don't know, my issue as well is with these people, they're like, I'm talking about how I don't like that Disney and Sky and Star Wars capitulated to these anti-woke people. But I suppose they see it as Disney capitulating to the woke movement in the first place by going, we've got to get every character's got to be female or non-white, and it's like when you watch it as well. Like I said, I think Disney probably did do that when they made it. I'm very cynical of Disney and of their approach to making media and art.
While we're talking about Disney and woke stuff, how much have you followed the Rachel Zegler stuff?
Not at all.
Okay, I was interested to see what you thought, because I've not really. I've heard bits and pieces. But basically, for anyone who doesn't know, Rachel Zegler played Snow White in the recent live-action readaptation of it. And she's been very vocal in the media and on the press tour about her opinions on all sorts of things, ranging from Israel and Palestine to women's rights and the update. And it's basically pissed a lot of people off. Again, I think probably the small minority of sort of right-wing knobheads. And it's forced Disney to properly tone down how much premiere they were doing, and they've scaled everything back. And it's then gone on to have a really bad opening weekend, and the numbers have been really bad, and it's by and large been panned and flopped.
Well, not to drag it back to the issue of race, but do you remember how many people kicked off when they cast a black woman as the Little Mermaid? And it was like, she's a mermaid. What are you talking about? What's the precedent of what colour she is? Yeah, what are you talking about?
Because when we first ever saw her, she was white, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
A film that was made over 50 years ago.
I mean, think of how people have warmed to it now, but the idea of having a black man play James Bond. Do you know what I mean?
I guarantee that there would be a huge uproar
if they actually go ahead with it.
All the talk of it is fine, and I think there's a few corners that are against it. I think if they actually did it, those numbers would get way more vocal. And what we're seeing now with Snow White, what we saw with the Acolyte, we're going to see all of that if they cast a black man James Bond.
But
you saw it when they cast a woman and then a black man as Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And it's like, show's gone woke. And it's like, the show's literally, have you ever watched the show? It's been woke from minute one.
I don't know enough about Doctor Who.
But come on, man. But be real. So they've got black. The dude's a fucking. He's an alien creature.
He's a regenerating time
It's an alien
lord.
creature that changes his face and body every time he gets near death.
Yeah.
What do you mean they can't be this, that, or the other?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You're okay with Matt Smith, who's in his 30s, becoming Peter Capaldi, who's in his 60s and looks older. So you're happy with it going young to really old, but you're not happy with a gender swap or a racial swap. It's like, what are you talking about?
But I thought,
same everywhere.
With the Rachel Zegler stuff, I thought there was an interesting question in there in terms of should she have known not to say those things and behave like that when you're being paid a lot of money and you're working for Disney, and that's not how the industry works. We might in an ideal world think someone should be allowed to completely speak their mind, but I do personally think she should have kept quiet.
I always believe that we have a moral obligation that if you think that there's some wrongdoing in the world, to speak up about it. So I would never attack her for that.
Representing
no, but I would never ever criticize someone for doing that. Me personally,
okay.
But people don't like to hear about it. So you have to, if you're smart, But if you think about it. Yeah, look, you're never going to get as much publicity as when you're promoting the film, but you're going to alienate a lot of people and you're going to affect the film, and subsequently you're going to probably affect your career. But for me, if I'm ever in that situation, like if I was in that situation right now, and we skirted anywhere near it, I'm going to mention my views on Israel-Gaza.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to take, because I'm never going to have that audience. I'm like, I've got the biggest audience I've ever had, and I'm going to make it known.
My argument would be, if you just, do the press, do the talk, get it all buzzed up, and it does better than it has, you've then got a platform afterwards when you're not obligated to keep quiet.
But where's your platform?
What do you mean?
Where's your platform afterwards?
Use the platform you've got. You're more famous than you were before.
But what's your platform? Social media?
Yeah.
Because no one's interviewing you. You're not going on talk shows. You're not going on radio shows.
She's a movie star.
when you're promoting a movie.
No, no. So what you're saying is, as soon as someone's no longer promoting a movie, they're not famous anymore.
I'm not saying they're not famous anymore.
And no, but what you're saying is their platform goes from like stardom to they've got nothing. Like
But your platform goes from all of these things to you can release your own podcast or you can go on social media, but you're not getting You're not getting invited in for interviews. You're not getting put on talk shows. You're not getting put on radio stations unless you're promoting a film.
I think
or whatever, unless you're promoting something.
I think you still could.
It so rarely happens. How many
No,
interviews...
I think celebrities only do those things because they're contractually obligated to do
possibly.
Then, like, she won't choose to go and do the rounds now. Do you know what I mean?
I just don't think you have I think the platform is there when you're promoting, so that's when you take it. No, but I
think that's being disingenuous about why you're there.
I love when we have a discussion.
You're being paid to not just you're representing the film that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
To promote it and to promote the company that has funded that movie, where you've been paid an exorbitant amount of money to do this project, to then use that platform that you're talking about being huge and massive to turn it into. And I don't think in any of I could be wrong. In any of the situations, someone went, Rachel, what's your thoughts on Israel and Gaza? Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's what happened. I think she's chosen to do it. Now, like, I respect the argument you're making in terms of she's just seizing her moment, but I do think you've got a responsibility. If you like, is she going to give the money back she got paid? Do you know what I mean? Like,
but I think you have a moral obligation, because what we're talking about here with the Palestine issue, as we both agree on we disagree on this issue, but we both agree on that, is a genocide.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
So if you see a genocide and half the world is saying that's not a genocide, you have a moral obligation. Not when you're being interviewed
about Snow White.
I just think you have a moral obligation to use that
If you're being asked
whenever.
questions about Snow White, deciding to just go, by the way, this is what
I'm going to make the comparison, okay? And I know everyone goes, oh, when it comes up. But if we were in Germany in the 1930s... And I'm Rachel Zegler. I'm a movie star. I've got this movie coming out, and I'm doing the rounds. I'm doing all the radio shows. Let's pretend TV is a thing then as well, even though it's not really a thing until the sort of 50s, 60s. But let's pretend TV is a thing, radio's a thing. I'm doing the rounds. And particularly in the latter years, as we're late 30s, World War II hasn't quite kicked off yet, but we're on the precipice. If I see political opponents of Hitler, and I see a clear target of Jewish people and a demonization of Jewish people, and I see them being dragged off here, there, and everywhere, I'm gonna say it, and I will be happy that at the end of my life, at the end of whatever this period of history is, I can look back and hold my head up high, and history will remember me well for speaking out against such atrocities. Now, obviously, history won't remember you badly for saying nothing when you're promoting a movie because you're not expected to.
No.
But I would be very happy that I'd fulfilled my moral obligation.
Fair enough. Well, no, I just don't think we're going to agree on it. I'm not going to try and argue about, the severity of the situations. I think what's going on in Israel and Gaza is disgusting. I saw a story the other day about just innocent people that had just been rounded up and shot and shoved in a mass grave.
Well, yeah,
and they only found out because there was footage from a dead person.
So it's paramedics and aid workers.
Yeah.
And what Israel had said when they released a statement about a statement about the incident initially, they'd said that they didn't have their lights on, they weren't identifying themselves as workers, and then they found this video and they saw that no, they absolutely were identifying. They had their flashing lights. They were identified quite clearly as medics, and they were found with hands tied and bullet wounds that suggested an execution style killing rather than a smattering of bullets or a drone. It was like, these people, you knew they were medics. Yeah. You can't deny that anymore. And aid workers, you took them out, you tied them up, and you executed them. And we've also now got one of the people managed to escape the initial incident. They've now given a first-hand report of what they witnessed before they got away to the UN. Fuck, I'm going to call... I wouldn't have thought less of her, to be very clear, if she had said nothing. Because I wouldn't expect anyone in that situation to. You're meant to be quite light and fun.
What I'm not saying is she should be condemned for it or anything like that. I just think time and place. Like, my opinion would be, if you're talking about platform, keep building your platform and then use your platform to try and make a difference.
And that's your opinion. And my opinion is there is always a time and a place to talk about genocide. There is never a bad place.
I'm sorry, no. When you're talking to children about Snow White, I disagree.
But you're talking to journalists, you're not talking to children.
No, but who's it being aimed at? It's about building the promotion up to get children to go and watch this film.
But I think the editors of that programme are not then going to take that and go, here, kids, here's CBBC, let's talk about Israel Gaza.
No, but that's sort of my point, isn't it?
But I just think there's never
like, who's she reaching? She's not reached anyone, really, has she?
She's reached us. We're talking about it. And
yeah,
we've
but
not
you
even,
don't,
we've
you
not
weren't
even
aware
seen
of it. You weren't
We've
aware
not even
of
really
it.
seen it. I'm vaguely aware of it. I was aware of it when it broke.
Yeah,
but I haven't
hadn't
followed
reached
it.
you in the sense that you decided to look into it and see what she'd said. And do you know what I mean?
Well, that was my choice, but I'd reached it. I knew she'd done this pre-Palestine.
And it's not
thing.
just it's not been exclusive. It wasn't like a one-off. She mentioned Palestine. It's been other comments she's made.
There's other
like
issues for sure.
I just think, if you're
and you're right. I'm
millions,
focusing on the one issue.
Yeah, I think if you're being paid millions to make and promote a film for a family-friendly organisation where all of the media around you're doing has nothing to do with the things you're bringing up, I don't know. I think, don't be then surprised if it does affect your career, and like it shouldn't necessarily, but that's just
and it probably will affect her career. But I would still
it's a shame. I think she's a really good actor.
I'd still hold my head up high, believing I've done.
Oh look, and I'm sure she will. We just disagree over whether that was the time. I think she could do it in more impactful ways than whilst promoting Snow White.
I don't think she could. I think that she's used the biggest platform she's been given.
I think again, it's a bit like Just Stop Oil. We're talking about her rather than the issue. Like, we have just explored the Gaza thing because we're in, but like by and large, the talk about it has been exclusively about her and the fact she's woke and all of that stuff, and about how it makes her look rather than people focusing on the actual issue.
There's definitely.
So I think it's a bit Just Stop Oil for me, where it's like, you've got to target the right audience, haven't you?
I don't know. I'd want to. I think everyone's the right audience when it comes to that. I do.
Maybe.
Especially people that are still, and there's very few people left. They're very quiet now. They're not as vocal as they were, but it's still people who are on Israel's side.
Yeah.
And like those people have gone.
There's lots of celebrities I've had to like
disengage from.
Yeah.
100%. Although they've all
really
gone,
disappointing.
they've all gone very quiet.
Yeah.
Because they're starting to find it, you can't defend the indefensible.
No, but like it's worrying how long it's taken. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
And like, look, Israel are getting away with it. Like, there's nothing.
Netanyahu's sitting in the White House right now. There's an international court warrant out for his arrest,
and he's chilling.
And he's
with
sitting
Donald
in the
Trump.
White House, and Donald Trump said, "I've literally seen the interview clips yesterday." And he says, "Let me tell you," he says about Gaza. He says Israel didn't give it away. He says they didn't give it away. They took that lovely oceanfront property and gave it away. He says, "I know this guy, not this guy. He didn't give it away. They didn't give it away."
Yeah.
So Netanyahu is doing very, very well for himself right now, I would say.
Yeah, he's under no danger whatsoever, really.
Not really. He also went to Turkey the other week. Was it Turkey or Hungary? I think it was
Hungary, I think.
Hungary, and they basically said like, "Yeah, we ain't gonna get you, mate. Don't worry about it. We're on your side."
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not Israel as much as it's this Israeli government and the IDF who are. I don't know. I do think Israel are.
To be honest, I'm not worried about differentiating.
There's a propagandist movement against the Gazans.
I'm not talking about the Israeli people. Do you know what I mean? That's not who I'm targeting.
No, it's the government that are making the calls. Yeah. And the soldiers that are enacting it.
Like, the Palestinian people shouldn't be suffering because of Hamas. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, we don't blame, again, to make the comparison, we don't blame residents of Munich or residents of anywhere. Like, we blame Hitler.
Yeah.
And we blame his government and his officials.
Yeah. Because we know there's countless Israeli people that are heartbroken by what's going on. So, yeah.
Made for an interesting discussion, though, with us.
Yeah, I thought we'd probably disagree on it.
Interesting.
When I heard about it.
Did you think that would be my view?
Yeah.
I'm quite.
And I don't think it's a bad view, by the way. I just disagree.
Different to yours.
Yeah. Like, that doesn't mean you're wrong. And like, this is what I like, is that we can disagree on something. We're both left leaning. We just have very different approaches to how that works and what it looks like for us. Do you know what I mean? And we don't fall out over it. We tend to
Very
find
different
it funny
approaches
that
to
we...
genocide. No, I'm joking. I was there as a joke. It was there as a joke, and I took it.
What's the meme of that? Do you know what I mean? Is it Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
The one where he's just outside with a cigarette, just...
I saw the joke and I took it. I didn't mean it.
No,
I
that's
just
right. But I know
it.
you don't think I'm all right with genocide. From the beginning, we've been
critical, very critical.
We've been anti,
and we've done a few podcast episodes on it.
Yeah, there we are. That's Rachel Zegler. On something more light, and we sort of touched on Bond a little bit. But have you heard who the favourite is to take over creatively and as the director for at least one film?
Pray tell,
we talked about them last week.
Is it Nolan?
Yeah,
because he's expressed interest before in doing.
He got turned down. The Broccoli's turned him down because I don't think he'd quite made his name at that point.
Well, I also think, with all due respect, I mean, and this is pure speculation, by the way. I think now, it's no longer the Broccolis.
Yeah.
So Barbara Broccoli isn't no longer going to be creative controller of the next Bond film.
Well, no, I didn't realise how foreign the Broccoli's were in producing in terms of how they operated. I thought producers just had that sort of control. They all follow a certain script. Or if you were a producer for a project, that was the sort of control you had over that project. But that's apparently not really the case. The Broccolis had quite a unique situation where they had outside investment, but everything was on their terms, and apparently it's why a lot of big directors have turned it down in the past, because famously big directors want a little bit of creative control.
And it's very easy for them to get invested because it's been such a hugely successful franchise for 60 years.
Guaranteed box office. Even the shit
now.
Films make money.
But I think, one, it's no longer the Broccolis. Two, like you said, it's really easy now to go Chris Nolan film because he's this huge star and he's got these huge blockbusters behind him, from Interstellar to Oppenheimer.
Tom Hardy's in there somewhere. Michael Caine's going to come back. Do you know what I mean?
But I also could imagine
Leonardo villain. Can you imagine?
I could also imagine Chris Nolan, given all of his projects that we do know.
Yeah.
You and I have both watched Interstellar. We've both watched The Prestige. We've both watched
The Prestige. I say it every time.
What was the film I literally just mentioned? We've both watched, Inception. We've both watched a lot of his films. We haven't both.
We liked the Batman films
and the Batman films, right? But I can very much imagine him coming in with this pitch, and it being a little bit different and a little bit, but not, because obviously when they relaunched Bond, it was a bit different. They went a bit more serious, a bit more grounded.
Well, yeah, the first one in particular was one of the more aggressive James Bonds we've ever had.
But I can picture him coming in with this twisty tale that's a new take, a fresh take on Bond, and it wouldn't have been the take that they wanted to go with.
No.
Because, even when you think about the 2005 Batman Begins, whilst there were very comic elements to it, it was far more grounded than anything we'd had before. Everything from, and there's a few slightly grounded versions of Batman in comics and cartoons and stuff. But when you think about the films that have been, they're quite cartoonish, they're quite outlandish.
Yeah, and I don't like any of those.
So again, he immediately came in with a very different approach to the character.
And apparently he was basically given carte blanche. They were like, yeah, okay, cool, go do what you want to do. And he just went and did it.
And he was like, I'm going to give him, there's so many things that he's like, there's no room. This Batman will never have a Robin. I know they kind of did the whole...
Yeah, he more sort of...
It was more a nod to it at the end. But he was like, my Batman is never having a fucking apprentice.
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff like that. So I can easily imagine that Chris Nolan went in with a pitch and they just went...
Do you think it would be a good Bond film? I know I'm asking you to speculate massively because consider... One, he hasn't actually got the job yet.
No.
We don't even know who James Bond is going to be, because a while ago we did a pod where we talked about Aaron Taylor-Johnson had been more or less confirmed as the next Bond. But I think
it'd be a good film if he approached it like he approached his last franchise with Batman. But if he approached it like his other projects since, I don't know that it would, because I think it would be needlessly complex and it'd be
I don't think he'll
needlessly
make
twisty.
I don't think you can really do. I mean, maybe with like twists and turns of Spectre and maybe some like infiltration storylines. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe that could be a bit twisty and turny. But it's funny, I was listening to someone sort of break down his film history, and they were like, with James Bond, he's been very public about his two favourite films are quite cartoony Bonds, but his favourite Bond, like actor, was Timothy Dalton, which is dark and
serious.
So like their theory was that it would most likely be more akin to Batman in terms of grounded and dark and, you know, beautifully shot and, you know, a diverse cast, and it'll be quite good.
Yeah, what do you think of Chris Nolan?
I mean,
Batman
I'm all for it.
Bond?
I like anything Chris Nolan does. Most of the only thing I haven't watched of his yet is Tenet, that I'm aware of, and I've never not enjoyed a Christopher Nolan film. So yeah, and I liked the dark turning with Daniel Craig as Bond and that storyline. So,
And you'd like to see it go deeper.
well, not necessarily deeper, but just stay along that vein. And I actually saw someone break down his Bonds, and like the first one really stands out in terms of like the dark element and how aggressive it was and the brutal death scenes in it, and they sort of lose that a little bit as it
got more
on.
silly and cartoonish as the things
but
went
then
on.
saying
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
I'd say my second favourite one of Daniel Craig's after that was the one with Joaquin Phoenix, and I love the scene where he comes down the elevator.
Not
and
Joaquin
Bond's,
Phoenix, but I know who you mean.
not Joaquin Phoenix.
Not Benicio del Toro either. Javier Bardem.
Thank you, Javier Bardem.
I just went through all my Hispanic actors.
There's only a few of them. To be fair. Michael Pena.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas.
Do you know what? That would be an interesting turn, wouldn't it? An Antonio Banderas villain.
Antonio Banderas, I think, would be such a good Bond villain because he's so suave.
He's
and
gorgeous
charming.
as well, isn't he? It's his voice.
And if you introduced him in like a Bond film, and he was all his lovely, beautiful, charming stuff, you'd immediately go, "There's something off about him," but I don't know what it is yet.
He's too good.
He's
looking.
up to something.
Yeah, there's something going on here. But I also I had that random thought of Leonardo DiCaprio being a Bond villain. I can see it.
But Skyfall is one of the highest rated.
Yeah, and
Bonds,
it deserves it, to be fair. I think it's one of the best. I think Casino Royale probably is my number one of the Craig Bonds, to be fair. But yeah, look, I'm just on board with Chris Nolan doing it. I'm open to anything in terms of who plays Bond. I think, look, I might get some hate for this. I prefer it not to be a woman.
I thought you were going to say I prefer it not to be Michael Caine.
Do you know what? Look,
The name is Bond.
he's old, but
James Bond.
he's a bit shaken. But yeah, I'm on board with it. I think it will be good. I think most things Christopher Nolan touches tend to work out, so I think it'll be all right. As long as Amazon don't fuck around with it, and but the rumours are they don't want to manage it. They want to give it to a director and say you've got 2 or 3 films to do a storyline, and
which is an approach, but as we've just discussed, it's very different to the one that Bond has had up till now.
Oh, totally. And look, whatever you want to say about the Broccolis, they managed it from a place of care, and
the thing that worries me if they do that and they go, right, we're going to give you 2 or 3 films to tell a story. The thing that worries me with that is that
what if the first one goes bad?
I mean, sort of, but it's like it's such an intense process, and the media focus on it is so full on from like pre-production all the way through to post-production to when you're editing, the scrutiny, the pressure, and all of it is
and that's
so
a long
intense.
time to sign up to something, especially if you're a director like Christopher Nolan, who's got quite a varied CV in terms of what he's done.
But what would happen if after the first one, or even the first 2, the director in question goes, it's way too much for me. I don't want another 2 or 3 years of this fucking lifestyle. I've just done anywhere between 4 and 6 years of it. Given that it's probably about a 3-year cycle for a Bond film, it's like I've just done 3 years of it. I don't want to commit to.
No.
Basically, the idea of you get to the end of the first one, you think, have I got to go through this intense
another 2 more times
for the best part of a decade? No way. and jumps out, and then someone
And what
picks
if it
up with
gets
it, and it's just a
panned as
different
well?
thing. It's a, you get like we're talking with Star Wars with the sequels, where it feels like the 3 films were made by 3 different people with different ideas who had not watched the previous films and had no idea what was actually meant to be.
Yeah.
There was no coherent storytelling, so that worries me a little bit. But I guess that's speculation. That's just fears. Also, again, Chris Nolan very rarely these days involved in a film that isn't part of his and his wife's production company.
Yeah.
So would they be able to jump in on it as a production, from the production side of things? Or are Amazon got full 100%, no one else is touching this?
I still haven't seen Oppenheimer. That's the other Nolan film I haven't seen.
I liked Oppenheimer. Long.
Yeah. That's the reason I haven't watched it, if I'm being honest. But yeah, and I think he's shown he can get a lot out of actors as well.
And again, Oppenheimer, it's one of those things where it's like, does it work or doesn't it work? Because, and I'd have to watch it again to remember which way round it was, but some of the films in black and white and some of the films in colour.
Yeah.
And the idea is that one of them is objective. It's like, this is what happened. And then the other one is from his perspective. Right, so it's like it's very subjective. So it's almost like when you're watching this, you've got to watch it with a grain of salt, because what's being said might not, if someone said something angrily, they might not have said it angrily, but he's interpreted it that way, and it's an artistic choice. And it's like, okay, I like it in concept. Does it necessarily work in the film? I think the reason it doesn't work fully in the film for me is that it doesn't come across that that's what's happening.
Okay.
And so in true Nolan fashion, you have to get told it afterwards and then go back and watch it again.
Makes more sense.
And I might watch it again and go, oh no, now I know it really, really does work. But at the time, I knew going into it that that's what they were doing. I'd read about it.
But to be fair, I think I found
didn't come
a lot
across.
of his movies, you have to watch them
twice,
2 or 3 times to sort of
appreciate it.
And I find even now there's films and stuff I rewatch and I go, oh fuck, I completely missed that.
The only film of his I think that I was like, meh, I didn't massively enjoy it and I wouldn't watch it again, was Dunkirk.
I haven't seen that either. There's a few of his films I haven't seen.
But the thing that I really don't like about it is the 3 stories taking place over 3 different timelines.
Yeah.
So you've got the story of the soldiers, which takes place over the space of about a week. You've got the story of the people on the boats. Yeah. So these, this like people in their fishing boats and their barges and stuff.
Yeah, the public fleet that took place.
The public fleet that takes place over a day.
Yeah.
And then you've got Tom Hardy's pilot who you follow, and that takes place over a couple of hours. So you've got a couple of hours, a day, and a couple of weeks, and it chops between them, and you're like, where the fuck am I in the timeline? What the fuck? I didn't enjoy it, and I understand the artistic ambition, and I'm all for being ambitious, and I think that's what Chris Nolan does. He's very ambitious sometimes with his storytelling, but it didn't work for me. I didn't enjoy it. The same with the whole objective subjective thing. I appreciate the ambition, but for me it doesn't come across enough. Therefore it doesn't work, because rather than watching it and going, oh yeah, it's interesting, this is his point of view, this is what I'm just watching it going, why are we in black and white now? And we're back in colour. I mean, I knew going into it, but I was like,
I get that.
Those are my Nolan fears. I still want to say I criticise him a lot on the pod for things like that, but I am still a fan of Chris Nolan, and I still
look, no one's perfect.
I like a lot of his films, and I think that, like I've just said, I really admire the ambition of a lot of what he does. Doesn't always work. And I like
what I hear from actors about him as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen Robert Downey Jr. because obviously he won an Oscar for Oppenheimer. I can't remember what character was he.
Strauss. He played a senator, or eventual senator.
He said like he'd put a lot of thought into the role, and he sort of turned up for a meeting with Nolan like closer to filming time, and Nolan was like, in my opinion, you need to forget everything you've ever done in terms of acting and like come at this from a completely different place than you've ever come at it before. And he said he found it really challenging and difficult, but he said, I wouldn't have, he said I'd have played it so differently had I not had that conversation with Chris. And like, that sounds like really simple, but
sounds vague without being vague. It's like, do it differently. But what does that mean? Just change it.
Well, I think basically the way Robert Downey Jr. implied it was like, you're a guy, like every role you play, there's sort of an essence of Robert Downey Jr. in this, the Tony Starkism almost. Do you know what I mean? Like the quick talking. And I think he was basically saying you need to drop everything you've ever put into a performance before and build the character differently and not from the same source you would do your role normally.
Also, the thing that I've just occurred to me was with Nolan taking on a Bond film is they're probably going to want a Bond film relatively soon now that Amazon have taken the right. He's out filming the Odyssey.
That's true.
And then there's going to be a lot of post. And again, he's very hands-on in the post-production. It's not like he hands it off to the editors, checks in every couple of months. He's there every single day.
Yeah, it's very true.
That's going to be a taxing
that
thing.
just adds even more to the workdoing of him doing the Bond, doesn't it? Because he's going to be doing all of that.
Yeah. So I wonder whether he is. He might one day, but I don't know if the first batch of Bond films will.
I mean, it's going to be really sad if he doesn't, because we've just spent half an hour discussing what it might look like. But just while we've got a few minutes left, who would be your next Bond if you had the choice currently? Because there's a lot of different ways you could go with it.
Do you know what? I wouldn't be one of the names that gets talked about, and initially I was always like, no, I don't fancy it. I wouldn't be against Henry Cavill.
Mate, I would love a Henry Cavill Bond.
But do you know why he would fit so well? I can picture it in my head. It's exactly like I've said to you before. It's the set piece. It's a 60s, 50s, 60s.
No, I think you could do
all the
modern
set pieces. I'd want to see him in that. And
See,
also,
I don't want a period Bond. I want
today. Period Bond.
No, I want him to steer clear.
But I also think what I would like to see, and again, it goes back to the 60s, although obviously I want it more updated version, is someone who's not, the idea of a handsome man and a masculine man or whatever has changed a lot. So when Connery took over, he's not what you, even in his prime, he's not what you'd consider now to be that traditional leading man look.
No, maybe not today.
Because he's in, and he's in fantastic shape, but he wasn't ripped. He didn't have the abs. He didn't have the thing. And as the years went on, as we got to like the Brosnan years and whatever, it got to the point where it was like, no, you've got to be. I'd like to go back to that where it's like, no, he's fit and he's good for the role, but he's not ripped. He's out there.
I think they did that with Daniel Craig a little bit though, didn't they?
But they still showed him topless with the abs. He came out of the sea.
Yeah, but you've got to give the ladies something. Do you know what I mean?
But equally, it's like, he is.
I enjoyed it.
He's a very busy man doing what he does. He hasn't got time to be hitting the gym every single morning, getting those ab workouts out.
Wouldn't he? He would be.
He'd be fit
out constantly.
He'd be fit enough for the role.
I don't know. I think the sort of physique of Daniel Craig in that sort of suit.
Also, I know.
But I think the thing that might go against Henry Cavill is he's quite
too big.
Yeah, that might be. Because
when
you can believe Daniel Craig being sort of like fast and ferocious, whereas Henry Cavill you'd see more as a like blow the door in.
Also, with every respect,
blazing.
Henry Cavill doesn't blend in anywhere. He's that big and
No,
handsome.
he's ridiculously good looking. But I'd like to see him do a dark storyline. Do you know what I mean?
But I'd also think, like, I know you're meant to buy into it.
Charlie Hunnam. I'm going to throw it out there. I think he would hate the job. I don't think he'd do it. And I don't think he'd be even close. But someone like Charlie Hunnam.
Obviously, age is different in movies and TV because it's more about what you look rather than what you are.
Yeah, yeah.
How old would you want your Bond to be at this first film, roughly?
Mid-30s, really. I think that's... If he's in his 40s, you're going to get maybe a couple of films.
And where in his career do you want him?
Because Daniel Craig stopped at like 50, didn't he? And he couldn't have done anymore. Like, he was quite open about the fact, like, just physically.
We see Craig get the 00 status. We see him move from being an agent in the field to getting his 00 status. So where would you like Bond to be in his career?
I wouldn't mind... Like
starting
a
again.
Full reboot, yeah. Because apparently, and I didn't realise this, that was what the Broccolis were struggling with. They were like, we've killed him. Spoiler alert. Like, we've never actually done that before. Like, and apparently they were just genuinely were at a loss of, like, where to take it next. And that was a big reason why they were willing to...
give it over.
Because they just, after everything they've done, they were like, we don't know where to take it from here. We don't know whether to, as we're discussing now, do you start from the beginning? Do you have him like established and he's like just the best at it? And
I'd also like more mention, and this is just a personal preference, I'd also like more mention, maybe it could just be a bit more relevant in the storyline or something, to the fact that he was, that he worked up the naval command rank.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That he didn't just walking off the street 17 years old to MI5.
Well, I think that sort of got dropped in the Craig ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he gets called Commander Bond once.
It was implied that, you know,
in
they
the
found a young orphan and they trained him to be a spy. And I think I sort of prefer that to the naval commander thing, because it's hard to believe like a high-ranking commander suddenly turns spy and, do you know what I mean, goes around flying around the world and no one knows who he is.
But, you know, he gets recruited. He's like, you're the best man for the job. You're resourceful, especially if he's worked his way up young.
You wouldn't recruit a commander that's highly decorated and make him an international spy that no one knows who he is. Do you know?
You follow the Navy?
Religiously. But yeah, like I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it just now. But yeah, I think I would prefer it to be along a similar vein to the Craig storyline in terms of like tone and the way they went about it.
Tone, yeah. I did like that, and I've always been a fan of the Dalton thing. I wouldn't be against seeing a few more gadgets, which can get cartoonish. They can.
Yeah.
But they can also be...
like, if I go back, and I know it's not a gadget, but like when you go back to like the Brosnan one where you have the space laser and it's melting the ice caps and he's driving in ice and water.
In his invisible car.
Yeah, and like he's surfing a tsunami, and do you know what I mean? Like you do... Whereas with the Craig ones, I'm sure there's loads you could probably pick out if we went through it with a fine tooth comb, but I can't think of anything where I go, that was overly outrageous. Do you know what I mean? There's no Fast and Furious moment where he Superman saves her flying through a car wind mirror and lands on another car like 50 feet, flying at hundreds of miles an hour.
One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen on cinema, by the way.
I can't, off the top of my head, think of many of those. You get a few silly moments. I think the last one where he's surrounded by cars and his car's like the most armor-plated safe car in the world, and it's spinning on its...
Yeah, with the guns.
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's not realistic.
But I like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
That works.
But I think that's about as far as I'd want it.
But you can have a watch with the wire coming out of it, and you could strangle someone with the wire.
Pierce Brosnan with the finger remote control car.
But again, Pierce Brosnan though, when he's got his watch that detonates but that could be. I could see Craig doing that, like those things.
Yeah, I think that's But when we're going space laser, tsunami surfing, and it goes a bit
and equally,
too
if
far.
you're going to do, you could even do in I could see in the Craig thing working. The watch with the laser, but a realistic laser that, you know, it barely cuts through and it takes hours to do. So you wouldn't, you know, you're sitting there.
It could be used as like a distraction
and you've
tactic
got to, like,
to get up close and knock them
but you
out.
couldn't, when you're trying to get through a door, it's like, this is going to take me fucking 12 hours. My arm's going to be dead. Like, you take a more grounded approach to the silly things.
But right, that's all we've got time for. So I'm going to do the socials if you don't mind. Guys, let us know what you think. Do you agree with our discussion about Rachel Zegler?
Disgusting!
Who would you like to see as Bond? Do you want Christopher Nolan to direct it? Who would you like to direct it? Who would you like to star? All that good stuff. Let us know. You can do so. Jake, point at the screen for the people.
This screen?
Yeah.
No, I'm done. Fine.
On Facebook at Crossing Swords, Twitter at Swords Crossing. You can email us at CrossingSwords19@gmail.com and check us out on TikTok and Instagram at CrossingSwords_podcast. And also, if you're just listening to this and you want to see our beautiful faces, click on the link in the description of whatever episode you're listening to, and it will take you to our YouTube page. If you see one of our posts or our videos, like it, share. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Do it. Do it now. Press it for glory.
Yeah. If you're feeling bored, you just want to knock one out, head to YouTube.
Yeah.
We'll get you there.
Yeah. Well, 100%.
We'll get you there.
If our voices haven't already done it for you.
Yeah, baby.
See you next time.